On this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, we talk about the post-hardcore band A Static Lullaby. We talk about how long they've been around, how consistent their sound has been, and some funny stories about when they released Rattlesnake and when we saw them live. So thanks for jumping on, and let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
Welcome to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast. I'm Kyle. We got Trevor and Josh, and 2 out of the 3 of us kind of want to die right now. So we're sick. So if you hear us cough or whatever, we're sorry. We'll try and edit it out, but
The
life
lone
sucks.
survivor this week.
And there's the first one. Yeah. So anyways, outside of being deathly ill, how are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm great, actually. This is the first time in a minute that I can say that.
And
Well,
I guess I had a good day. I watched two of the greatest Batmans, in my opinion. And you're probably going to agree with one, and the other one you'll be like, So I have this argument with my wife all the time on what the greatest Batman movie ever made, and she says it's Michael Keaton.
No.
And I've gone back through, and I've watched it. It is terrible. I couldn't even get through the first 5 minutes. I turned it off because it was so bad.
Yeah.
So then the next one, she was like, what's the other one?
Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer. And I'm like, terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Can't watch it.
Is that the one where Arnold's the ice dude?
The Iceman or whatever.
No. It's a different
Mr.
one.
Freeze.
Mr. Freeze.
No,
Yeah.
so in my opinion, The Dark Knight is the best Batman ever made. So
Yeah,
Is that the
the
first
second one.
one with Heath Ledger.
Okay, see,
That's
we'll
the
disagree
Joker.
on that one. And
Like, to me.
I catch hate for this all the time. So
Yeah. So
Anyway.
to me, I'm like, that's the best Batman. And the second one, and I don't know why, but it is Batman and Robin with George Clooney and Mr. Freeze. Because it's like
Okay.
so overly cheesy. It almost reminds me of the old style of Batman's, but it's just like, it's just good.
They have like Bane in that one too. Like
Bane and Poison Ivy?
Poison Ivy, yeah. That I really like that one. I thought that one was great too.
That
But
one's not
no,
bad.
Dark Knight is by far the best one. Kyle, you can lose this one.
I just felt like it was the Joker featuring Batman, and I got
Oh,
kinda tired.
100%.
I'm
You know
tired of
what?
the Joker. I'm tired of the Joker being the only villain of Batman. He had like hundreds of other villains. Like, do something new. Heath Ledger was incredible, but it wasn't a Batman movie. It was a Joker movie.
I would have had another Joker movie with Heath Ledger than probably, I probably will catch hate for this, than current Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
That one was good, but it made me too uncomfortable.
It's
It was
rough.
creepy.
It
Yeah.
is. Which, I mean, I guess like proves how good it was, right? That it makes you, because that's the point. The Joker's messed up. It should make you uncomfortable.
Oh, 100%.
Which I thought that like Heath Ledger like nailed that though.
Yeah,
Like,
he
I
was-
thought he was so good.
But here's my thought, like between DC and Marvel, because that's always the other controversy, which one's better, which it's Marvel. But like I watch DC for the villains. Because the villains are so much better than any hero that DC's ever made. Because like when you go through Batman, like the Penguin, Two-Face, the Joker, Poison Ivy, or Bane, like I watched it for that, not for Batman. But in Marvel has really good villains too, but I more watch them for like the Avengers and Spider-Man and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I actually agree with you. I've read a lot of Marvel comics. That's like that was the universe that I grew up reading comics of. Not as much DC, but the villains in DC, like you said, Josh, are 100% way better than any of the Marvel villains. So,
yeah.
what did you think of the Batman though? I thought Robert Pattinson actually did a solid job.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I really liked it. I really like it's more of like a crime thriller aspect kind of thing.
So
Instead
there
of
is
straight-
a comic run called Detective Batman.
Yeah.
That's what it's based off of, and
Yeah.
it was pretty true to it. It was really good.
Oh, really?
So
Who's
I really
who's the
I really-
upcoming villain in the next one?
I think
So
it was
they-
Joker, wasn't it?
No, so they arrested the Riddler.
No,
And then
yeah,
somebody was in prison with him, and I don't remember who it was.
that's the Joker.
That's
Yeah.
the Joker.
But I don't think that's the main villain in this one. I think they just announced who like the main
I don't know.
villain.
Honestly,
But
I
you
haven't
know what?
followed DC like at all. So
Maybe it was a fan thing. I think
know
they
they-
said Mr. Freeze.
I know the whole time it was the Riddler, and they caught him. And I actually really liked the take on the Riddler that time. He was way darker.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and what's funny,
Although
so like,
Jim Carrey's Riddler is really good.
I know Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah,
That's the one with Van Kilmer, right?
I think
Val
so.
Kilmer.
Yeah.
Which those guys hated each other on set. Have you guys
Yeah,
read
I
about
remember.
that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, they couldn't stand each other. But they said I think the reason they couldn't stand each other is because like Jim Carrey was so big at the time that he could just sway like the whole casting and crowd to him. But then Tommy Lee Jones was also really big, and so was Val Kilmer. So it was almost like an ego pissing contest between the three.
But on top of that, Jim Carrey does the whole method acting where he like becomes that person, and he was like over the top between like scenes and stuff like that too. And
So just
just
like Jared Leto when he was doing
yes,
the joke. Have you heard the stories of that?
yeah, Jared
That just
Leto.
solidifies my hate of Jared Leto. So he would like mail. Didn't he mail like a dead bird to someone and like a used condom?
He did weird stuff, and it was mostly to wasn't it mostly to Margot Robbie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
freaking perv.
So
Jared Leto.
Yeah,
30 Seconds to Mars, everybody.
yeah. Which they played like the New Year's thing, and it was not good. So
Dude, I saw them play once in like 2007, and he played the wrong chord, like right at like a very profound like part in the song, and I was like, oh, that's rough. It was so bad.
My mom drugged me out to see him. Drug or dragged? I don't know. Took me to see them. And it was at Avalon, I think. And it was when they'd like just started out. So this is probably like 2005.
it was with Seether, and it was that little venue that was like, oh my gosh, what was it called? I've got to text Chris. We talked about this on our episode with Fritz. So
okay, well, anyways, I just remember him walking through the crowd with security guards. And I'm just like, bro, like no one really knows you. You're not that cool. Walk behind stage. Like if you're gonna willingly walk through the crowd and you're gonna have bodyguards like you're acting tough, I don't know, dude. Run me the wrong way. So
you know, that was my first venue concert that I actually ever went to.
okay.
So yeah.
Was that the one with Dragon Force? Dragon Force wasn't there, right? That was a different one.
No, it was 30 Seconds to Mars, Seether, and I'll have to look it up.
It's like the definition of mom's like favorite music. So
I saw them play with Taste of Chaos. It was The Used, them, Census Fail, Seos, and Chodos, Aiden.
I actually think A Static Lullaby was on there too.
They might have been. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was at the Maverick Center. I remember because like I didn't buy my ticket in time, and so I could only get a seat ticket. And so amongst friends from school, we went. I can't remember who gave it to me, but we were cutting a bracelet and we were retaping it on and passing around a ticket and kept getting kids like through down to the general admission. It was pretty funny.
Anyways, bunch of new tours were released this week. Josh, you sent me a couple of them.
Yeah. So I saw one got posted down there actually in Fort Worth. That's actually a big festival. And the reason I sent it to you is because Seoson's playing their self-titled front to back with Cove. So I thought you'd be pumped to see that.
Yeah.
And then Under Oath is playing They're Only Chasing Safety front to back.
Yeah. That's the So What Fest.
I've already told my wife that we're going to that. But there's like, I don't know, Devil Wears Prada's playing, Silverstein, O Sleeper, Emery.
There's a couple of weird bands on there, but then there's also a couple like, that'd be cool to see bands.
Like Mugshot's playing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're playing because that tour with the Amity Affliction, Dying Wish, Currents that just got announced, I think that leads up to it. So all those bands are actually playing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only one I didn't see, I think, is the Amity Affliction, but I saw Dying Wish, I saw Currents, and I did see Mugshot. So,
but like He Is Legends playing. No, the Amity Affliction is on there.
Oh, they are. So that whole tour is going to end up at So What Fest, or at least play So What Fest.
The Almost is playing. That's kind of cool. I like the Almost. And then POD.
POD would be cool to see.
Youth of a Nation, dude. Heck yeah.
Dude.
Down with
Satellite.
some POD. Dude, I'm way down with some POD.
Magnitude's coming through here in March, end of March. That got
That's sick.
announced.
I did see that.
Just a bunch of local bands opening for him too, right?
Yeah.
There's
Shut.
one out of state band coming with them too.
Magnitude?
Yeah, I don't remember who the out of town one was.
Oh,
Let me look real quick.
I guess we can wait for him because
Fill the Flames. They're from San Jose.
That's the one.
Run into the Sun and Stone Shut. They're both from here. Fill the Flames has played here so many times that I see them on a flyer and I forget that they're from out of town. But
just assume they're local at this point.
Yeah,
it's cool. Then the other one that I saw that got dropped was the Bayside Finch and Armor for Sleep show.
That looks really cool.
So good.
So I hope Finch is smart enough to play just what it is to burn. That's what they should honestly do. Just play that front to back, and that'll be like one of the greatest nights ever.
You know, I saw them once and nobody was there. It was like on their farewell tour. It was super weird.
They fell off hard. Like I love Finch, but I probably wouldn't have seen them towards the end of their first run. Like I didn't really enjoy their last two albums as much. Well, their newest one, let me clarify. Their newest one they just put out, I actually did like. But Say Hello to Sunshine, that was fine. But then the one after that, it was just kind of meh.
I actually like the one after that more than Say Hello to Sunshine.
Really?
Say Hello to Sunshine got a little too weird for me.
It did get weird. It got way weird.
Bizarre.
They were a very hit and miss band for me. They'd be like a song, I'd be like, this is super good, like What It Is to Burn. But then the next song would come on, I'd be like, how'd you go from that to that?
I can see that. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this, because Armor for Sleep's on that show. They just came through playing their 2003 album Dream to Make Believe. Do you want to see them play more of that? Or do you want to see them play What to Do When You're Dead?
Oh, What to Do When You're Dead. Front to back.
Front to back. Hands down.
That is guy floating in the air.
Yes. And it is one of the best post-hardcore concept albums ever to be released.
I get behind that. I really like that.
So good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Their first record's really good. I really liked it, but I also feel like the second record was like a awesome follow-up to that one, and I just caught onto it way more.
I did too. Hands down. Like, I listened a little bit to Dream to Make Believe, but What to Do When You're Dead it's like a staple for me. It is like that good. I freaking love that album so much.
Yeah, Remember to Feel. That's the song. That song is so good.
Yeah, I was really fun when I was out of town when they came through, because I saw them a lot when I was younger, but I haven't seen them probably since like 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
And so
their new album's really good too.
Yeah. 15 years-ish.
I actually like their new album.
17 years.
The Rain Museum, that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that record.
It's pretty good.
I think, Josh, you were the one who texted that to me. So
yeah, they released a single and then dropped that whole record this last year.
2022, actually. So
they actually don't have a very big discography.
No.
They have like those two records, and they released one a couple years later, and then it's just nothing.
Until the last one, right?
I mean, like, there's one hit wonders, right? There's one album wonders as well. And for me, like, Armor for Sleep kind of falls into that. Like, What to Do When You're Dead is just so far above the other stuff that they put out for those first three, in my opinion, that like I didn't care to listen to the other two at the time. So
that band Matchbook Romance is the same way. They have the record stories and alibis, and then they just disappeared.
I freaking love that album too. I was actually listening to that today because
a really good album.
A Static Lullaby. There's some comparisons there.
Just want to announce some breaking news because this is kind of cool. But The Offspring liked one of our reels.
Hey, let's go!
It's kind of a big deal when an Instagram account with 1.4 million followers likes some stupid thing that we posted. So don't be humble brag right there, but hey, that's kind of cool. So
just for clarification, it was stupid too. So
yeah. So all right.
Oh, that's awesome.
The last thing I want to bring up real quick, I think I'm going to start making this a habit because I kind of think it's funny. last time we talked about toilet paper, I have another random fact that I learned this week.
Gosh.
I had read that they have found in 2% of hot dogs, there is human DNA in it.
Yeah.
That's
You don't know that?
disgusting. No. What
Sorry.
the F?
Have you ever looked into how hot dogs are even processed and made?
Okay, but why is there human DNA in there?
Because when a person falls into the grinder, they just keep
You should look up how that's made. I don't doubt it at all.
Dude, they were saying that, like, look at this. This is a line from the article I was reading. DNA is not on the FDA's list of product defects. Excuse me? Like, what else out there just has human DNA in it?
Listen, bro, like we've all just come to accept what hot dogs are. You just don't peek behind the curtain or you just don't eat them, kind of thing. We all know. They're called Franks for a reason. Frank was ground up and
I don't know, right? Oscar Mayer was like the name of the two guys they just killed.
What happened to Oscar? I don't know. We'll just hold a memorial for him and just name the hot dogs after him.
This article says items such as feces, maggots, and rodent hair in processed foods are allowed by the FDA because food growing and manufacturing processes cannot be totally free of non-hazard, naturally occurring defects. I don't think freaking like feces in food is a naturally occurring defect. It's disgusting. The world is gross.
So what you're telling me is the Sweeney Todd weenies I've been buying have had like human artifacts in them.
It's not just human. It could have feces, maggots, and rodent hair. You could be eating rat hair. It could be like a human arm that you're eating with rat hair on it.
Which, by the way, you guys like Sweeney Todd? I like Sweeney Todd.
Don't derail.
You ever watch that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? The Johnny Depp?
Yep.
I've never seen it.
It's a
musical.
Wouldn't be your thing.
About killing people and then baking them into pies.
I want to watch it even harder.
Yeah, he's a barber, and he kills people upstairs, and then they send the bodies downstairs, they grind them up, and they serve them to people.
That's
Meat
disgusting.
Pies, bro.
I'm not watching that. You're right. You guys know me. All right. Back on track to the band at hand. A Static Lullaby we're talking about today. And I'm interested to see what y'all have to say about it. So they are a band that started back in 2001 in Chino Hills, California. I had no idea that they were this old. Did you guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I didn't. But the reason I found out they were this old is when we were doing From Autumn to Ashes. If you remember, I was like, a band who was heavily influenced by From Autumn to Ashes was A Static Lullaby. And then I went and looked, and no, they actually started the same time as From Autumn to Ashes. And so I was like, holy cows. Anyways, that's when I realized how long they've been around.
Looking at their first album, that was released in 2003.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I don't know. I mean, I've listened to these guys a lot. Again, we're going to hear this a lot on this podcast, especially on these episodes. Was introduced to them by my brother. Their first album, and Don't Forget to Breathe, that was the first album I listened to them on. And I know that Josh, you're not a big fan of them and stuff. Trevor, I think you like them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was listening to these guys and hearing Josh talk crap on a band that I really like, which I guess is deserved because it's usually me doing it.
Welcome to my freaking world, man. Literally every episode we've done.
I know. But I seriously sat there and I was like, why do I like this band? I really was just thinking about it, but I came to the realization that I thought back on all those memories of us hanging out in my basement and playing pool. These were the perfect albums to put on. Besides Rattlesnake, and we'll get to Rattlesnake, but the first three albums, they're not hard listens at all. It's an album that's a little heavier, but I can still put on in the car with my family. We could be chilling in my basement playing pool, talking. It's not like an album that I felt like I had to sit down and pay attention to the whole time. Or it wasn't too depressing, but it wasn't too rough. It's such a good middle ground to where I could just sit there and listen to it. And I think that's why I really grew to like these guys. So Trevor, I probably heard them with me, but do you remember how you got into them when you first listened to them?
I mean, 90% of the stuff that we talk about that's old, it's in your basement. But I do distinctly remember when the self-titled came out, the 2006 one. I used to go hang around Graywell, and which was our local CD store, and I was able to snag a copy pretty soon after release that was used. So like it was still out, like brand new for like $20 or whatever, but someone had bought it and returned it, and I got it for like $7-8. So like I actually listened to this album a ton when it first came out just because of that. And it's a far cry from Fossilitito, which I think is probably why it got returned. Is if someone was expecting Fossilitito to A Static Lullaby self-titled, like it's way different.
Yeah,
right?
it's funny that you say that because a lot of people hated the change from and Don't Forget to Breathe to Fossil Latino. So
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. So coming back to it though, it like if you were in that 2005 phase though of the emo rock sound, like then coming back to A Static Lullaby was definitely going to be a hard change.
Yeah, that's fair. So Josh, what about you? When do you remember how you got into them when you first heard them? Was it, I mean, I take it this wasn't a band that you really like listened to, right?
Yeah. So their first record was 2003, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'd have been like a little young. I probably think I got into them when I was probably maybe 14 or 15. At that time, what your band name sounded like, at least to me, like was a make or break if like I would listen to it. Like if the band name sounded stupid, you were probably stupid. I mean, that's stupid to think about now, but I mean, I don't know if you guys kind of remember that, like the weirdest like band names you would come out and be like, man, that sounds so cool, you know? Like a Skylit Drive. You know, it sounded so cool.
Yeah.
Or like the Almost or Under Oath or Thursday Threat, whatever. And so like I heard the name of Static Lullaby and I instantly had this like at least the band name of like what they should sound like, and like they just didn't sound like the way that I wanted them to.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, I feel like, in my opinion, even when I went back through and listened to these records, I feel like they just, to me, it sounds like they could never really figure out if they wanted to be heavy or not. And like the vocals, like at least the way the vocals sounded was really hard for me to get into. But the more and more
like the scream or the singing?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
And like the more and more I think about it, I just think there were bands that I felt like were doing way better than what they were trying to do. And the list that I came up with, I only wrote a few down, but
yeah,
I was into bands like Hidden in Plain View, A Change of Pace,
love them.
From First to Last, Emery, Emmanuel, Lorraine Drive, and Funeral for a Friend.
Okay, so but you're talking about Fossil Latito then, comparing it to those bands, right? You're talking about the 2005 album.
All of it.
Okay, because this is where I'm going to disagree with you, because I did the same thing. Fossil Latito is very, very much in the vein of those bands that you just listed out. And like, I 100% actually agree with you on that. They did not do the sound as well as those other bands. But after Fossilitito did not do well, A Static Lullaby, when they came back with the self-titled, it was such just a, you know what, screw this. We're going back to what should have been and Don't Forget to Breathe follow-up kind of thing. And they knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. That being said, there was a lot of music that did sound like this. Like you had to have a reason to catch on to it, in my opinion. They didn't grab the headlines like some of the big bands, the Under Oath, the Devil Wears Prada, the other like metalcore-ish sounding post-hardcore bands that were bigger in the time. They didn't catch the headlines.
Yeah.
So you had to have a reason to listen.
That's kind of where I fell with them. It's an interesting sound. It's an interesting like musical career that they had, because I didn't feel like they're emo enough to fall in line with From First to Last. You know, I could not get into First to Last. We've talked about them. If you want to know why, go back and listen to it, right? But I could not get into them because it was too whiny. It was too emo-y for me. Like this was just emo enough for me, but I never felt like the vocals were necessarily like whiny and like too emo-y for me to listen to. But they still were heavy enough, especially when you get into their later albums, that it was like still a comfortable sound for me. I don't know. It's interesting to see like through all the years that they played that Fossil Latino was really the only one that they tried to like go soft on, and it didn't turn out. But reading online, there's a lot of people that were like, no, Fossil Latino is my favorite album, and that's the only one I care about. And I don't know. It's just an interesting way to look at the band, right?
So, do you want to like jump through like album to album? Because I do think that what is interesting is Fossil Latino was also the only one with a different producer. They used the same producer for the other three albums, and they are all very much similar in their sound. I mean, Rattlesnake, you get the southern stuff, but it's still a post-hardcore, aggressive album kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about And Don't Forget to Breathe. I mean, this is 2003. So, okay, yeah. And this was on Ferret, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So they had actually recorded like a bunch of these songs before. I think most of them were recorded on like an EP before this dropped as an actual album. But I mean, still, this is coming. They were in high school and stuff writing this album. So, Josh, I think you said that this might have been the only album that you actually liked.
The first one?
Yeah.
I think he said it was Rattlesnake.
Yeah, it was Rattlesnake. There was a few songs I could get into on that, but other than that, I think for me, it was just more into other things that were going on. And so they just never, like I said, they were never at the top of my list.
In 2003, though, this is a very interesting sound, is how I feel about it. Because I don't know, you had like From Autumn to Ashes, but that's a lot heavier, you know?
It is. But like at the same time, you had Thrice with the Illusions of Safety.
Yep.
That's still like a heavier sound though, right?
But that's more what I was into.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I really like this album. When I started listening to it, I had forgotten that I knew all the lyrics to these songs. And it was just like this weird feeling coming back of like, holy cow, I know every word to this. Like The Shooting Star That Destroyed Us. Like when he starts singing right there at the intro, I was like, okay, I know every word of this song. I know exactly what's happening. And all these like memories flooded back. But what did you think of this album, Trevor?
Yeah, it's good. I think that what's interesting, what you just pointed out, is there are heavier bands, but then there was the post-hardcore bands. These guys were actually a pretty good bridge between the two. I think that you got more of that. You started to get that emo rock sound, right? That you do get in Fossil Latino, but they were more aggressive with their vocals, a lot more screaming, a lot less clean singing, and it did get heavier at times. So I really liked it. A Sip of Wine Chased with Cyanide is fantastic song, right? The Shooting Star That Destroyed Us. That's the song that put these guys on the map and actually got them their next record deal.
Yeah.
But I thought it's a good album. It is dated. It is a 2003 sounding album, right?
For sure.
So
they should remaster it and put it back out.
The thing is, I don't know if even remastered, just like the guitars themselves, like the riffs and stuff, are almost dated.
See, it's like I feel like that's so interesting because we've literally talked about bands that I feel like have done this way worse, you know, and everyone like praises all that, like From First to Last.
But like it's not. Here's the thing, though, is because they were that like bridging band, like it didn't like help define the sound. Someone like a Thrice with The Illusion of Safety, that's like a defining album, right? It helps to define a sound for a genre. Even like From Autumn to Ashes, that's another one that's more of like a defining sound. You said From First to Last. We know how big From First to Last got. Yeah. Like their sound, it's good, it's fine, but nothing about it was like there's going to be a ton of bands after these guys that copy these guys.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother about this because he's a big A Static Lullaby fan. I wonder if it's a generational thing with us, though. Because even online, like people talked about how important and impactful And Don't Forget to Breathe is, and how it was a sound that like was new to them. But like one of the guys online that was talking about was saying that like as an 18-year-old listening and Don't Forget to Breathe, it was like mind shattering for him, you know? So I wonder if that's just a generational thing that we maybe can't really appreciate that, because when you get into what I feel like is the heyday of A Static Lullaby of what, like 2006 and on,
Yeah.
like at that point we're already into the really heavy stuff, or the quote unquote better stuff that we were listening to at the time, right?
And that's fair, right? Like that's probably true to an extent, but I go back and I listen to some of the other bands that we've talked about, and there's a more deep appreciation though for some of the other bands that and the sounds that they put out. Like it was stuff that I could get into. I like Don't Forget to Breathe. Like I do.
Yeah.
But like if I'm ranking this, like Fossil Latito's the last one, this is just like just above it kind of thing. The other two albums are just so far above these two that maybe that's what it is for me.
So I mean, okay. So do you have anything else to add on this album, Josh?
No, I think too, like, as I'm kind of going through looking now, I think it falls in one of the same categories too with this band, that the tours they were either put on or the tours that they went on, not only not as like a headliner, but the bands they went on with, like drew a way bigger crowd than them, and I almost feel like they just got like kept getting like pushed into a corner.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But some of their tours around this time, like they were on a My Chemical Romance tour, which I guess I get where you're coming from, what you're saying of like, if you're going to talk about like an emo sound at this in 2003, My Chemical Romance is ruling.
Yeah, it's like
ruling
they
the
just
roost, right?
they figured out how to cut their wrist deeper. I don't know.
Exactly. But they've also like, it's kind of surprising because like they played with Hot Water Music and the Lawrence Arms. They played with 18 Visions and Strung Out.
They played with Bleeding Through and Sleeping Giant.
Yeah.
Just things where I'm like, that's cool but weird.
Right.
It was
even like, I mean, when we get into Fossil Latito, like the tour that I saw him on was like Haste Today, but that was a weird tour actually in general.
I don't know. I thought that was like the Haste Today Scary Kids one, and then they ended up continuing that tour onward, right? So I actually don't think that one was that strange. I thought, you know what, like again, they're good, but we should probably just move on to Fossil Latito, right? We're gonna beat this horse dead.
Yeah. Right. So Fossil Latito. When I chose this band and was thinking about them, I was like, Fossil Latito is like my favorite album of theirs. And I thought that because like this happened to me a lot with the music that I discovered from a brother, where it was like, he was really into like the first albums of these bands. And then like he gets older and doesn't really get into it. And then when they release like a second or third album, then like it's me personally that discovers it and makes it my own. Right. So that's the memory I have with Fossil Latito. It was an album from A Static Lullaby that like I did not discover from a brother. I listened to it on my own. Like I found it on my own. It was like my own thing. Right. But this album came out in 2005 and it was released on Columbia. That's a bigger label.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Like significantly bigger, right?
No, it's huge. Yeah. So, and this is where they get that different producer too, right?
Yes. So they were with a guy named Lou Giordano or something like that. And this is a guy who did things like Taking Back Sunday, Tell All Your Friends. He did one of the Halifax albums, stuff like that, right? So a much more rock base. He did a lot of Goo Goo Dolls. He did a ton of Goo Goo Doll albums. So you definitely get that rock sound, right? And that's what they're pushing on this album. But did you guys see a little bit of the controversy around the physical copies of this? So Columbia got into a little bit of hot water because they, on their discs, put a software installation for your computer that a disc could not be burned. It was a way of like copyright protection. And it was called the Extended Copy Protection Program. When you put this into your computer, the first thing it did was ask you to accept the terms and conditions, which installed like a malware on your computer and essentially made it so you couldn't like burn copies of it, but it like completely screwed up a bunch of other stuff too. And there was only like 47 of their releases that had it on there, but this was one of the albums that had that
Yeah.
on there.
Crazy.
So
You know, it's funny you bring that up because I actually didn't know what the cover art to And Don't Forget to Breathe was, because it was a burned copy from a brother.
oh yeah.
So I think like going back and listening to it, I was like, oh, that's what the album art looked like. Like I never knew. Yeah. So one of the other things is this album was not received very well. And that is the general consensus that I got online. If you got into A Static Lullaby during And Don't Forget to Breathe, you did not like this album. If you found A Static Lullaby with this album, then obviously like you like it, and it's a lot of people say it's their favorite. But they even got to a point when like they would apologize to fans for playing songs off this album.
I think I
like it.
did. I read somewhere that they consider this album like their Weezer's Pinkerton.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Which again, Pinkerton's a dope album too.
I know.
But
Josh, did you get a chance to listen to this one?
I did.
What'd you think?
I felt about it the same as the first record. It was like a little better, but it was still just kind of lost, in my opinion. That still the same thought I have of, I just don't feel like they could figure out what they were trying to be, or I couldn't figure out what they were trying to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think they were trying to jump on the emo rock train right here. Just like you, Josh, I started to compare them to some bands and stuff. So, like, the ones that came to my mind, though, it was like Finch, Matchbook Romance, which you already brought up, but then a band like June. Do you guys remember June? Bed Light for Blue Eyes.
Bed Light for Blue Eyes, remember them?
There was just like this wave of like emo. Halifax. There was a wave of like emo rock sound that had just a little bit of the heavier stuff, like a little bit of the post-hardcore, but it was really just rock music. Mm-hmm. But like you listen to like Stand Up, and the thing is like they all came out around like 2004, 2005. All of these albums did. But Stand Up is just like, it's an emo rock anthem. Yeah. Go compare it to like the song Patrick from June, and it's very similar to that. The song Half Man, Half Shark that starts with that drum intro, if you didn't immediately think Motion City soundtrack, Everything's All Right, like go listen again, because it's like Everything's All Right there. So I'm with you, Josh. Like it was a fine album, but they didn't do it better than anyone.
Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of how I felt too, coming back and listening to their discography. Like, I think I looked at this album through clouded glasses, right? Just because of being 14 or whatever when this came out, and, you know, listening to it on repeat because it was my album that I found that I was listening to. You know?
Well, we also like talked about this on the MySpace episode. Like, you made this your MySpace background, right? Like, you spent hours using this album art to like be on your MySpace.
Literally, the background, like the album art to this with the tree that's like the roots are burning or whatever, was my background on MySpace. So, like, yeah, I mean, fond memories of this album. And this is when we saw that tour with Haste Today, Scary Kids, Bed Light for Blue Eyes, Halifax, you know, a lot of the other bands that we were talking about. I always thought that tour was interesting because this is when Haste Today was arguably their heaviest with When Everything Falls, that album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, that's true.
Man, that record is so good.
It is amazing. And this show was amazing too. So, yeah.
Oh, Lo-Fi Cafe. That was where we saw 30 Seconds to Mars and Seether.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
Well, that's where we saw these guys too.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that's why it just popped into my mind, because I saw that on there.
Lo-Fi Cafe.
I don't think it's around anymore, right?
Oh, no. Oh. The venue doesn't even exist anymore.
It was actually a cool venue. No?
I think I did, because I showed you I have a brick sitting right over there from the building.
No, that's in the venue.
I said the venue.
No, we're thinking of
the venue.
We're thinking of Lo-Fi Cafe.
Yeah, I know. You said Lo-Fi's not around. I said, yeah, neither is the venue, but I meant in the venue.
I gotcha. I was so confused.
You know what? Screw whoever named it In the Venue, because that's their fault.
It actually used to be called Bricks.
Yeah, it was Bricks for a long time, huh?
And then they separated the two, and then they renamed it Bricks later on.
Okay. I don't remember any of that. So, anyways, the last thing I'll say about this album is that one thing I've always really liked about A Static Lullaby is I feel like they can write choruses that are just super snappy, real good. Like when Josh talks about how like you can listen to a chorus like once or twice and remember all the lyrics. Like thinking about the chorus on like Radio Flyers Last Journey, it's freaking solid. And I think that's why I like this band so much. It's just easy listening. Like they've got such good melodic choruses that are just like super enjoyable. They're easy on the ears, right? And I felt like this album really capitalized on that. So, all right. Anything else on this one?
I mean, no. Overall, though, we just talked about the album art and stuff. These guys have amazing album art. Like, I actually really like all their album art. The "Don't Forget to Breathe," where it's like the open cavity of the guy kind of thing. Fossil Latito, the tree with the burning roots. A Static Lullaby, the self-title. It's very like black and white. We'll talk about like the music video they did off that. Like it was very, and then Rattlesnake is just like, yeah, that's gonna be a Southern album. You will get that. You will get the album art, and you're like, if this doesn't have Southern riffs on it, like you guys messed up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I love the album art. So I just wanted to point that out as we were talking about that stuff.
So their next one is the self-titled A Static Lullaby album. This was released in 2006 and it was done on Fearless. And they changed producers again with a guy named Steve Evans.
So he did their first album though too. So they went back to him. Yeah.
Have you seen some of his like discography that he's worked on?
I've heard the name.
He's crazy, man. He's done like he did like Sick of It All. One of the Story of the Year albums, Saves the Day, Every Time I Die. I mean, he's done Poison the Well.
Yeah.
Dillinger, like he's been around a long time and has done some like sick stuff. I don't know. We bring that up. I don't know how much of it actually like matters. I'm sure it does.
I think it mattered for these guys. I mean, very specifically, I think it mattered for these guys. So Columbia dropped them after Fossil Latito did not do well.
Yeah.
And they ended up back with Fearless. And I think it was at that point where they were like, let's go back to what we know, what we enjoy. And Steve was a big part of the first album. Let's go back to Steve. So I think that for these guys specifically, it actually probably did make a big difference returning to him.
That's a good point. So this is my favorite. Going back and listening, this is my favorite album of theirs. And I know that we're probably going to talk more on Rattlesnake just because of like who we are and the music we liked back in when this came out and stuff. It was a huge album, I think, for at least me and Trevor. But I think this is their best album musically. Like Rattlesnake might be more fun, but I think musically this is a better album. They got a little heavier again. There's a lot more screams. The singing is not like as rocky, like you were saying, Trevor. It feels more like a post-hardcore album. What did you think, Josh?
A heavy post-hardcore album, though, too.
So, I remember probably this record the most. So, like I say, I didn't get into these guys until I was probably like 15 or so. And so I was kind of working backwards. But I think I heard this record first. Like, it's okay. But nothing really sticks out to me on it. So, like, it was hard for me to relate. Like I say, it still fault to me. It's just that's where I started kind of placing. I'm like, that's okay, but I'd rather listen to Under Oath.
Yeah,
like, I do think I'd rather listen to that.
I do think in 2006, that's a very good point. I think it's a really good album. Like Hang 'Em High is amazing. And again, there's something about this band being able to write choruses because the chorus in that song is just unbelievable. The way it changes from like heavier kind of choppy verses right into this like really fluid, like melodic chorus. I don't know. I just really enjoy that change in that style. So what did you grab on this album, Trevor?
I mean, like I said, this is actually the album that I listened to the most, probably outside of Rattlesnake, because I got this so early on. And the one thing that really caught me, so 2006, is this when we were in 10th grade, right? Coming into this album. I think so.
Yeah, we would have been 16.
It came out in
No,
October. So
15,
yeah.
16. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you guys take the movie history class where you just watched old like black and white movies and stuff?
Yeah.
I was usually an SSI or
What?
not SSI, ISS, in school suspension.
Oh, I gotcha. I took that course in my 10th grade year, and we were watching black and white movies, and their music video for Hang 'em High is that black and white kind of horror type of
Yeah.
thing. And I remember sitting in that class and then seeing this movie, and it just like all clicked because I was like, I'm watching these old movies and all this stuff, and like all came together like right there. And then on top of that, Hang 'em High, I mean, it's Halo, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like there was so much about this album that like caught my attention and was fun. They had their this is the time where everyone's doing like weird song names. So you have the annexation of Puerto Rico. I always remember that one. Trigger Happy Tarantula. Like you
Yeah.
always remember that kind of thing. But overall, it was a return to form. This should have been the predecessor to And Don't Forget to Breathe. And like I really like it. But what you're saying, Josh, Under Oath to Find a Great Line took up so much of like our time and stuff like that. It was so good that this album was like probably 4 or 5 down on my list of everything else I was listening to that's a similar vein as this album, you know?
You know, that record in itself even put bands like Thursday so far down the list.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
taking
that's what I'm
like
saying.
Sunday, like across the board, it was like, whoa, who hit the red button?
Exactly. I mean, there was that album.
I feel
Day
like
to
that's
Remember Homesick was around
yeah,
this
but see,
time.
I feel like this is a generational thing though. This is where
It
I'm getting
is.
back into. I think that's a generational thing because like my older brother doesn't care about Define the Great Line.
Right.
Like
Well, your
he
brother's
likes
He's
stupid.
he's
Peace and
wrong,
Safety.
man.
I know he no, I
He's
know
so
he's
wrong.
I know he's wrong. But like but that's the thing though, is like my brother grew up like when he was in the age that we were discovering things like Define the Great Line, he was discovering A Static Lullaby.
Yeah, but here's the problem is I get what you're saying, and obviously your brother's probably gonna like this album more than Define the Great Line just because that's what he was listening to and stuff. But the audience that they are targeting is the Define a Great Line audience. Like that's the touring package that they're on. They're on with Haste the Day, with Scary Kids, like all those other bands that we were seeing at the time. That's who they're going with. They're not going with From Autumn to Ashes anymore. They're not going with some of these older bands. They're going with the up and comer bands.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
no,
do
I'm
agree with
actually
the
gonna talk about that.
I do agree with the generational thing. I mean, we talked about that tour that's going to Fort Worth, right? The So What Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you mainly go for, right? Probably see Seos in front to back with Cove.
Yeah.
But do you think that's actually just a small handful of people that want to see that, or do you think other people would rather go see a
Dude,
handful
I
of
mean,
the other bands on it? You know,
yeah. I mean, looking at some of the other bands that are coming on that tour, it's like I don't know how much people care about Sailsin with their self-titled with Cove, right?
Well,
I mean,
and again, So What Fest is going to be like a current modern day Warped Tour lineup, right? Like that's what you could somewhat compare it to. And younger kids, Dying Wish is huge right now. Like Mugshot, Pure Noise Records,
yeah, but
all of
see,
that kind of
I
stuff.
think those are the big outliers. Like I think
Sure.
people are still gonna know. Like most of the bands, like if you're listening to Boys Like Girls or Mayday Parade, you probably have heard of Sailsin. But if you're like a kid now and you're like, I'm only listening to Mugshot and Dying Wish, you probably don't know who Sailsin is.
they're like,
Or
oh,
you do, but you don't care.
they
Right.
don't care.
So
Like
that's what's going to be interesting about this tour is I don't know because you have like Under Oath, but Under Oath's playing They're Only Chasing Safety. So if you're listening to They're Only Chasing Safety, you're 100% going to know who Sailsin is.
yeah. But that's like my point about like Warped Tour though, is like when we used to go when we were younger, we were watching the smaller stages. Like there was the occasional bigger
Yeah.
band and stuff like that, but we were pretty frequently at the smaller stages, not the main stage that often.
Well, until like 2008, 2009, then we were, because then it was like a Day to Remember headlining, right?
Exactly. So I think that it's just going to be a similar thing. I think that you're going to get a lot of the younger kids who are going for these newer bands who are hitting that. But then you're also going to have a lot of people who are probably their mid 30s, like us, who are going to be there for the Seosins, the Under Oaths, and even the Amity Affliction, right? The headliner of that tour that those guys are all on. So
yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting band when you start getting into stuff like that, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
What else? You guys, anything else that you want to call out on this album? I think that this is like, we're going to get into Rattlesnake next, but I think that musically, this is their best album. Like, I think that it's more polished. I think it like makes more sense of what they're trying to do.
I think that Rattlesnake's a very unique sound, and I personally love Rattlesnake, but I think that this album is going to draw more people in. There's a lot of people who don't like that Southern butt rock sound, right? Like, or they like what you have said, you can only listen to so much of it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that this is probably their best album in terms of you can listen to the whole thing front to back. It's very polished. It's very clean. They did the best mixing, producing on it, kind of thing. So yeah, it's probably their best album.
Yeah. And again, just to reiterate, like that's the big draw for me for this band is like, I had it on during dinner the other night and my wife does not like music that screams, but like I could put this on in the background and she was okay with it until the Rattlesnake songs came on. You know, when he's saying like, your mother F the milkman, and you know, it's like, I got to turn that crap off. Right. But like, just thinking about us in my basement hanging out, or us like just chilling at a park with music. And it's like, this is the perfect band to just put on, because it was still heavy enough that we didn't feel like sellouts or whatever, but it wasn't too heavy that it was like, you know, people are going to be weird that we're, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such a good, easy listen. And I was just really drawn to that. So,
yeah.
And then they released Rattlesnake in 2008. So that album, 2008, on Fearless again. And pretty sure it's the same guy producing it.
It is.
As well. Dude, this album came out of freaking nowhere. So, because that's like 2 years of them not really playing, not being around, not doing much. And then they drop an album like this. And so, do you remember they did an interview and they had one of their guys dress up as someone else with like a fake mustache and said that he was going to go play for the band. And he used to play in a band called Rattlesnake. And turns out it was like the bass player that was in costume, just messing with people.
Yeah.
So even that, like, it's just perfect, right? Because it's the dumbest thing ever. But this album just like absolutely killed it. They completely changed their sound. They go Southern metal. Is that what it's technically called?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Josh has affectionately referred to this sound as butt rock many times.
Butt rock.
So,
okay. Southern butt rock.
So, right. We're like talking like He Is Legend style. Even like Every Time I Die. What's that one? Gutter. Is it called Guttermouth? No, that's the song. Anyways.
If you took Nickelback lyrics out and put screams behind it, you probably wouldn't tell the difference.
I think you would on this album.
Or Creed, whatever.
All right. So this album freaking gets me pumped like to my core, dude. I don't know what it is. It's not the heaviest album that we've listened to, but something about the energy and like the pace of the songs just gets like my heart rate going, you know? So what did you think of this album, Josh? You said this one had songs that you actually liked.
I liked this record probably the most. It definitely has that sound change, a lot more Southern feel. It was a little heavier. I know the breakdowns you guys were talking about that kind of get you amped up. One of them was The Prestige. Was that right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that can listen to that one. That was pretty good. What was the other one?
The Pledge.
The Pledge. Okay. I almost said The Pledge. And that one's pretty good. So around 2008, we're going through another shift change in what music sounds like too, right? Like what's the in, and that if this album would have came out in like 2006, they probably would have jumped the gun and been ahead of the change, and it probably would have saved them. But I still think they were just behind. Because in 2008, A Day to Remember was kind of at their peak. Devil Wears Prada was towards their peak. And then Maylene and the Sons of Disaster came right in and took that Southern rock, and it was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So I might disagree with you a little there, because I feel like releasing this in 2008 was baller, was awesome. Because in 2008, you had some of the worst music, I think, that our like umbrella of genre has ever come out with a lot of the like, this is when crap like Escape the Fates getting really big. And it's like, this to me was a really good change of pace.
This is a terrible take. 2008 had some good freaking stuff.
Dude, this is when it all starts to go downhill. It all starts to get super soft. It all starts to get whiny.
Just because there was like some big bands who were like dominating the scene that kind of sucked, there was some bomb ass music being dropped at this time too.
Because Maylene's before 2008.
Back to Every Time I Die, the Big Dirty New Junk aesthetic, like that was 2007, 2009. You had these guys dropping albums. He Is Legend, I'm pretty sure that was when their second album dropped. Like
their second album's not even that good. The only He Is Legend album that matters is I Am Hollywood.
Oh my gosh, bro.
I could agree with that.
Dude, I'm telling you, 2008 and like 2009 is when you're starting to get this like huge, like the scene's getting super soft. It's getting super generic. All the like Hot Topic scene crap is taken over. And actually, like, they go on tour with Alisana, and Alisana's headlining. And that's the crap that I'm talking about in 2008 that sucked. And then this album comes out. And to me, I was like,
oh my gosh,
okay,
dude.
This is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was the right time for them to drop it.
Well, okay. So what I mean is, it would have been a good time to drop, but to me, they still felt in the same as like, it's good, but I'd rather listen to that. Like,
yeah, I don't know, man. We listened to this a lot when it came out.
I listened to this album a lot. I agree with you, Kyle, in the sense that it was different. It was different than what was going on. And so I think that that's why I latched onto this one so much. But we've talked about it before. Like, there was all the post-hardcore bands who were dropping like their Southern song on the album, right? We talked about Dead and Divine, who had San Dimas on their album. We've talked about Before Their Eyes, who had, what's it called? The Journey Down South, like Two Step into the Journey Down South or something like that. Memphis Mayfire, they dropped their EP, right? That was 2007. I love the Southern riffs post-hardcore sound. I like to have a full album of it when everyone was just putting one or two songs. I had those one or two songs on repeat. So you give me 9 of them, like it was awesome. It was like glory days for me for this album.
So their interview, when they went on this tour with Alisana, it's Alisana, Greeley Estates, Motionless in White, Jamie's Elsewhere. Literally the bands that I'm talking about that ruined the scene, right? Every single one of those.
Sure. Bad. And you can talk about how just like the scene crowd, I guess is what you're trying to refer to, right? Alisana was really into that. Jamie's Elsewhere was really into that. These guys, though, like aesthetically, these guys were really into that too. They were all about the eyeliner. They were all about like that kind of stuff. So the music is different, but their style, it all fit the same.
I don't care about their style. You're wearing a freaking vest right now.
But that's what
I hate.
50 Cent.
Listen, bro, this thing has been like a game changer here. It's been so cozy during the winter time. Dude. Yeah, man.
What do you have against arms? Put sleeves on it. I don't get it. Like, why do arms not? Okay, I'm not getting into this right now because literally we're gonna take up like 30 minutes on me hating.
I just don't understand why it's not a turtleneck, like a sleeveless turtleneck.
It goes all the way. It goes all the way up. I just don't have it zipped up. There you go. You like that?
Protect your neck.
Terrible.
That's actually like cooking me right now. It's freaking hot.
Anyways, so this interview they did, it's on this tour, and they're asking the A Static Lullaby guys about the tour, and you can tell. Like, I think the other bands, we just kind of like guessed that like, oh, hey, like from autumn to Ashes is opening for younger bands that they probably inspired. We talked about that with Poison the Well, but none of them ever really said anything. A Static Lullaby kind of said stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
They were like asking him about it. And he's like, yeah, Alisana, they're like freaking vampires. Like, I'm pretty sure Greeley Estates like sleeps in coffins. And they're just like poking fun at him. And you can tell that it's like, bro, we've been doing this since 2003 and it's 2008 now. And these idiots are like, we're opening for them. You can tell that it's like rubbing them the wrong way.
Sure.
So,
sure.
That tour, I can understand that tour. But then in 2008, we saw them again because they played with, this was the Maylene Confide Attack show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you were at that show, right, Josh?
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where you saw them. But I vividly remember this show.
I don't remember them playing. I remember Attack played because no one was there and it was super weird.
Oh, I remember that
show from Maylene. And this was the last time we got to see Confide. With the majority of their main original lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who they also have listed on this is Here She Lies played this show.
They didn't, but
it says they did.
Oh, dude. So this is our problem with that.
Which, really quick, Here She Lies was a local band.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were a pretty big local band, and at the time, if you wanted to play for that company, the Collective, a booking agency, you'd have to sell whatever tickets they required. And then whatever tickets you didn't sell, you would pretty much have to pay out of pocket. Like it was a super shady business, super shady deal. Well, they were usually pretty good at selling all their tickets. They sold them all. And I remember they were super stupid too. Like they walked up with this briefcase, handcuffed it to themselves, just be stupid or whatever. And they went to pay the booking agency, like, hey, we just wanted to bring it to you in a briefcase, being stupid. And they're like, hey, well, cool, thanks for selling all this, but we can't let you play. They're like, what do you mean? Well, the touring manager said they don't want a local, so yeah, we can't let you play. So they made this band sell like 100+ tickets for the last like 3 months for this show. They all took work off. They drove down, set up on, dude, they set up on stage and did like sound check and everything.
Gosh,
it said, yeah, they can't play. You have to get your stuff off the stage.
That is jacked up.
That is the problem I had with that booking agency.
Sure. The only thing that I'm going to fact check you on is there's no way that there was 100 people at this show.
No, I think it's that minimum because I'd had to do it before.
Sure.
This show was packed, man. Maybe not when they were playing, but
when they would sell like tickets, so you'd like sell tickets to like as many kids as you could, and like the guitar player for that band, he had pretty good parents. Like they would just buy out the rest and hand them out to whoever if they could. They just wanted their kids to play. Yeah.
I remember buying tickets from Here She Lies a couple of times. So
yeah,
I know that I bought a few from them.
Not all the time. It's not like that big of a deal because you get a cheaper ticket. But also at the same time, I'm like, dude, I don't work for the booking agency. That's your job.
Right, right. So
like, get real.
So I vividly remember this show because I remember they came out playing one of the Rattlesnake songs. It actually might have been The Prestige, and the bass player walked to the side and he like went off stage for a second and then he comes back out and he like flips his hair back and he's got a cigarette in his mouth.
You know what it was? Because it has that opening guitar riff where it's just the guitar and he wandered off right then.
Yeah. And he came back out. And so they're playing this like dirty Southern riff and he's smoking a cigarette on stage. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was amazing.
And we were also there for some dirty Southern rock because Maylene was the headliner.
Yeah,
so.
I broke my finger to Maylene there because I swung back on someone and whoopsies and crack. And like, I remember my finger being like completely dislocated at like one of the joints. I had to like pop it back in place. But
I know we were probably all cutting our pants off like right above knee height. Get ready for the show.
Guaranteed, right?
Like jean shorts and stuff. Yeah, dude. I'm wearing
shorts.
Pretty sure I was in like a tank top, like a jersey with like cut off shorts for Maylene, dude. Heck yeah. Yeah.
Dude, so good.
So, and Josh, you know what? Looking through some of their tours, we actually saw them again
Yep,
at
the Saltaire.
Saltaire on the Dance Gavin Dance tour, right? With Lower Definition.
Yep, Lower Definition and Four Letter Lie.
Yep. And you played that too, right?
Yep. Yeah, we opened for that show. It was super weird. It was a daytime show. It didn't do very well.
Show.
It flopped so hard. And then there was a rave that night, and I had never seen a rave before. And I saw all these like half naked women walking in. I was like,
That's what this was, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
It was super weird. And then we all got out.
That was super weird. Who ended up being like, did Dance Gavin Dance play last there, or did Static Lullaby play last?
No, Dance Gavin Dance.
Yeah.
Dude, that is weird.
Secret and Whisper played. They were so good.
Dude, I love Secret and Whisper.
Dance Gavin Dance, Four Letter Lie. I remember Lower Definitions played, and that was like the first time, and I think only time we ever got to see them before they disbanded.
I think so.
And then
Def's so good.
Because the drummer went to go play for Of Mice and Men, which was a terrible option in my opinion. But
true. Dude, lower Definition is like,
they were way before their time.
They're way before their time. They are one of the most underrated like post-hardcore bands ever.
Yeah.
That album, what's the album called?
I'm not even sure. I know what the record looks like.
Yeah, the one with like the camera.
Ventriloquist, right? Is that what it's called?
No, the greatest of all lost arts.
Yeah.
Yep. That whole record.
Satellite, the intro with that to Satellite. Oh my gosh! And I remember seeing him come out, and he was in like baggy jeans with like Osiris skate shoes, and I was like,
"Yeah,
that's the dude singing this," and he was incredible, absolutely incredible. So, anyways, this is an episode about A Static Lullaby. So,
oh yeah. By the way, your Automary is on here as part of the lineup, so that's pretty dope. On concertarchives.org.
That is sick.
I've seen that.
Look at you on obscure websites about concerts.
They found me.
Awesome.
They found me.
So, all right. What else did you guys think about this album, Trevor? I don't know. I know we're coming up on time. I don't know if there's really much more to say about it.
Oh man. I mean, yeah, at this point we're, like I said, we're just kind of beating a dead horse, but I freaking love it. Like, you want to give me dirty Southern rock, like this is what I like. So anytime you want to put this on, I'm happy to listen to it. We want to talk about bands like actually being influenced by these guys. I bet this album played a huge role in like Wilson coming up. Yeah. Like, you hear some of the riffs that Wilson puts out, and there's a lot of sounds from here. But, you know.
So I appreciate this album. Look, Maylene and the Sons of Disaster is like a top 5 band for me. Eventually, people are going to start keeping track of me saying top 5 and realize that it's way more than 5.
How many top 5s do you have?
I've got a lot of top 5s, dude.
Depends on the social media.
Maylene is literally like, they're just so good. They do this Southern butt rock metal or whatever, just so freaking good. But you get into like their like 3 and 4 for their albums, and I honestly, that didn't hit with me. But when Rattlesnake came out, the way that they did this like Southern sound, it was just so fast and so in your face and aggressive the whole time. And I really appreciated that sound from a Southern.
Well, like I don't think sound. Anyone screams like these guys do through the Southern. Like, that's also what really caught me. If you like the screams, like, I actually really like his vocals a ton.
Yeah.
And on top of a Southern album, they hit so well for me. So,
yeah. So if anyone doesn't believe us, just go listen to The Prestige and listen to the breakdown where he starts freaking screaming that like Buried Alive and stuff. And it's just like, oh, this is like, I broke my finger at this show, right? Like, that should say enough to like how hard we went for it, which is, you know, funny that a band like this, we would go that hard, but I don't know. It's a band that I have a lot of memories of. I've listened to them throughout the years. It's a lot of nostalgia. I think that they do have a lot more influence than I think we've given them credit for. I think there's a lot of bands that are going to go back and be like, yeah, Static Lullaby's a big influence for them, but I don't know. It's a cool band. So you guys got anything else on it?
No, sir. I'm curious. I've seen all. It seems like all the members are doing new bands and stuff like that. I went and listened to a few of them.
Like Dead Horse and
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
there was something else dead too. Like they're complaining about people being vampires. Everything you put out is dead something now. Get over yourselves. So,
Yeah.
but no, like they're dope. This was definitely the best band that I think that these guys did. I don't care for anything else that I've heard from their other members. So
Sure. So, all right. Cool.
dope.
Let us know if you guys remember these guys and if they are actually good and that Josh should clean his ears out.
Probably should.
Some soap or something in there. Get those old timey, like the ones they use in The Hobbit, where you can like
the horn
thing,
No, I want to do the wax in the little like candle thing. You seen that?
Yeah.
I've heard that doesn't work. I think that that's a myth.
I heard somebody got like some weird ear infection where like some critters got in their ears.
Maybe I just halfway wanted to catch my face on fire and just end it all.
Listen,
holy cow!
I'm sure if you ask Cheyenne, she'll help you with that, bro. So
yeah, she wouldn't waste a toaster on me.
Oh man. Anyways, we're gonna end before we say something too dark. Next week, I think we're gonna change it up a little bit. I think we're gonna do some local bands again, like what we've done previously. So we'll get that dropped.
We got some cool ones on the docket.
Yeah. So dope. Well,
cool.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.